Hey, how's it going? This is Corbin with Expert Opinions. Today we're going to be talking about M16 clones. The way I originally got into wanting to build an M16 clone, I was on Reddit and I saw somebody that had a Colt SP1 upper for sale for a good price. I thought it looked cool and I wanted to build a clone, so I bought it. That was the beginning of a lot of problems that I didn't realize I was getting myself into. So it turns out on these Colt SP1 uppers, it's a larger pinhole size, and Colt made these purposefully have a larger pinhole size of their own volition, just because they wanted to make it more difficult for people to be able to use actual Colt M16 parts on the civilian rifles. The pin I'm referring to on these Colt SP1 uppers is the pivot pin. They purposely make it larger. Colt originally decided that they didn't want people to be able to take a Colt SP1 upper and place it on a Colt M16 machine gun lower. There was no federal law or requirement that they do that. Colt just has a history of not really caring that much about civilian Second Amendment rights. And so they did that just to make life harder for average citizens. So shame on Colt. But what it turns out to be is that there is an adapter bushing of sorts that can be installed on a Colt SP1 upper so that you can use a standard AR-15 lower. The problem with that is that bushing is not a concentric bushing, it's an eccentric bushing. And so what ends up happening is when it's installed in this rifle, it can rotate, and that can cause the front dimension to open up ever so slightly and cause malfunctions. How do I know this? Because this happened to me when I bought this Colt SP1 upper. If the Colt SP1 upper would have worked on a standard lower, that would have been the end of the story, and I wouldn't be sitting with 4 different clone rifles. I would have just had fun with the Colt SP1, and that would have been the end of the story. But it turns out the only way to get this rifle to function properly with the Colt SP1 upper is to essentially like lock tight that bushing in place, and who knows how long that Loctite would stay in place for. And so I just ended up selling the upper, which is too much of a headache for me. After I sold the Colt SP1 upper, I was on a quest to find something more authentic, and so I decided to buy an original Colt M16 upper from Apex Gun Parts. This rifle that I'm holding is a Colt 602 clone. The Colt 602 is the M16. It's not the M16A1. So the M16A1 added a forward assist here. The actual original M16, you've got no forward assist, and you also had a buttstock that doesn't have a trapdoor in it. Surprisingly, with the elimination of the forward assist and a non-trapdoor stock, this is actually several ounces lighter than a traditional M16A1, and it's light enough that you can feel the difference. So this is an original Colt M16 upper with original charging handle, original bolt carrier, and then it's got a reproduction lower on the bottom, which I will show you. This upper is the original charging handle, original bolt carrier, original barrel, original hand guards. I think I picked this up on Gun Broker, something like that. The lower on this is a Brownells reproduction lower. So I actually met somebody locally who I literally bought their whole rifle just to get this lower because this was discontinued by Brownells. But basically all this does is on the magazine side, it's a partial fence, which just is to make it look a little bit more accurate for an M16 clone. But I really like this rifle. I've kind of tried to keep it as original as it could possibly be. And these guns are just really smooth and really fun to shoot. The flash height on this is what we refer to as an A1 birdcage. Later, they went to an A2, which is what we're all more familiar with, where the bottom is actually closed. On this one, it's open. It still functions as a flash hider, but the reason why they went to an A2 with a closed bottom is when people were laying in the dirt, that would cause a lot of dust to plume up, whereas the A2, you get less of that because it's closed off on the bottom. The grip on this is an A1 style grip where there's no finger nub right here. What a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these A1 grips are a little bit fatter than an A2 grip. And so they actually feel a little bit more comfortable. Like I really can't stand A2 grips, but the A1 grips feel a little bit more comfortable. This has what we call an A1 style rear sight, where it's more of a battle sight instead of being completely adjustable like an A2. This rifle is basically you sight it in, and it's not really designed to be fidgeting with a lot of stuff in the field. A lot of people like the A1 style sight better than the A2, myself included. The front sight on this is just a traditional, what we'd call an A1 style front sight. The barrel on this is an original Colt barrel. It's 20 inches long. It's a 1 in 12 twist barrel, which is optimized for a 55 grain projectile. The bolt carrier on this, you'll notice, doesn't have any serrations like what we're familiar with today, and that's because the serrations were added later for the use of a forward assist. On the M16, what holds the handguard on is called a slip ring. We're used to calling it a delta ring. It was changed to a delta ring later to make it easier to pull down on the slip ring, because since this is just a straight profile, it's very hard to pull this down. That's one thing that's also different on the M16 rifles. When we talk about M16A1 clones, there's actually different models within the M16. So you have the Colt 601, Colt 602, Colt 603, and Colt 604. The rifles that have no forward assist line up with the 602 or the 604 model. The 603 model is an M16A1. The 602 or the 604 is what would be designated as an M16 rifle, which predates the M16A1. So this is not an M16A1. This is more in line with a Colt 602 or 604. Now let's look at the Colt 603, which is what we all know as an M16A1. This rifle here is what we all know as a Colt M16A1. The main differences on this is it has a forward assist. Therefore, the bolt on the inside has the serrations, and it also has a trapdoor buttstock. Like I said before, just the addition of the forward assist and the slightly heavier stock, you can feel that this rifle has a little bit more weight than the previous rifle. This M16A1 clone, I'm sad to say it, but it's got a Poverty Pony lower on it. So it's, the Colt lower that we have at home. And it's just an extra one that I had laying around. And so it's got a Magpul trigger guard. It's got an upgraded GI trigger in it, so that silver looking trigger doesn't match the whole vibe of the clone aspect. But this is just a fun rifle to shoot, and I like it. This next rifle is also an M16A1 clone. This is what I would say is the most faithful reproduction of a clone that I could possibly go for. It's got an original Colt M16A1 upper with the original bolt carrier group. It's got an original Colt 20 round magazine. And what makes this one special is it has a reproduction M16A1 lower from International Milco. This one is actually marked GM High Dramatic. So GM was one of the manufacturers for M16A1s during the Vietnam War. I'm originally from Michigan, and so I really like anything that's GM, and so that's why I chose to buy this reproduction lower. International Milco, they do a really great job. This is not engraving, it is actual roll marks, so it makes it look super authentic. And they have the markings on it for safe, semi, and full auto, which also is kind of a cool reproduction as well. And this one has a safety selector that will turn to auto, just as kind of a cool factor. You can see this one doesn't have the third pinhole, so this is just a semi-auto rifle. This rifle has the first upper that I bought after I sold that Colt SP1 upper. I bought this from Apex Gun Parts. It's like a Puerto Rican police trade-in. This thing is all beat to crap, and it's got a black enamel paint on it. And this is kind of, because this is more of the beater rifle, and so I've set this up to be kind of a retro mod setup. So the buttstock is pre-M16A1, so it has no trapdoor. I wrapped this in some multicam tape and some paracord and used what they call a canteen strap as the sling. and I have that as paracord on the front sight. This is an M16 upper because it has no forward assist, which is more in line with the Colt 602 or 604. This bolt actually does have serrations on it, so it could be that this bolt was a replacement bolt and not original to this upper, which is certainly possible. This has a Brownell's reproduction retro scope, which is like the original Colt scopes, and I believe this one is a 4-power scope. I really, really like this scope because not only is it a 1-to-4, but you can still use your iron sights while you're looking through the scope. I have shot this rifle at 500 yards and been able to consistently hit steel with this little carry handle scope, so I really like that. Again, I'm ashamed, but this is just sitting on a Poverty Pony Anderson lower. And these handguards are real old school because these are the glossy black handguards instead of being matte handguards. Up on the front, this is one of my favorite things about this rifle, is it has a light on it, and it's a Arasaka mount that actually mounts to the A2 front sight. And so the way that this is set up is underneath this multicam tape, there is a pressure pad which turns the light on. And so basically, if you need to hit the light, you just put your hand to the end and you press down the pressure pad. And so you have a light, you have an optic, you have a sling. And what I like about this is even though this is super old school, this technically still falls into the category of what would be a fighting rifle. These 4 rifles are just an example of some different types of clones that you can build if you're really into the M16, M16A1 type setup. I hope this helps to give you some inspiration for whatever ideas you guys want to do. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Keep an eye up the hill, guys. Original Colt M16 upper from Apex Gun Parts.
Okay, so your whole cadence is like
too slow.
Retarded.
Too slow.
Not too slow. You sound stupid.
That's fair. Okay. Sometimes you can just say, do it again.
I don't
just
want
keep
to.
it. I don't want to.
I don't want to say it like that. I want to say it the way I said it.
I'm just. Hey, say it however you want to say it. But sometimes.
Hey,
you can just
I
say,
like
do
that
it
part
again.
right there. Say it however you want to say it. I'm gonna listen to that part.
Sweet. Thank you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Keep an eye up the hill.
Why do you nod every time you go to your neck? Is that like a period on the end of your
I don't know, man. You want me to not nod? I can
mean,
do that.
You look retarded. It's so bad, dude. You just sound stupid. You sound so dumb.
Oh my goodness.
It's steadily getting worse.
Well, I mean,